And joining us now to discuss is Jack Brewer, retired NFL player, entrepreneur. Jack, good to see you. Weigh in on that for me. You saw him sharing his stance. He does it in a very an intricate way where he's outlining the facts. He's got the stats to back it up on his argument there. But you can see some of the disgust on some of the commentators' faces listening to him going against it. There is a fear about going against the Black Lives Matter organization. What are your thoughts on that and what we just heard?
I've lived it. I've been counseled because of this. You know, I've done substantial research on fatherlessness in our country. I work in the inner city schools with so many fatherless kids. 71% of high school dropouts in our nation are fatherless. You are 20 times more likely to go to prison if you're fatherless. I teach in the prisons around the country, and so I see these men, and I know the pain that they go through. I know the wounds that fatherlessness causes. And so many of the issues that we see happening in our society come because we have completely blown up the family structure, just like Marcellus said. And that is where our core issues have come. And these are the reasons why this happens is because of so many liberal policies, from our welfare policies that disincentivize fatherhood, for our lack of enforcing so many of our censorship laws. Kids that don't have dads at home come home to empty homes, or they don't have anyone to look up to. And these cell phones and this media, the social media, the video games, this rap music that is putting all this toxic energy into these kids' ear, that's what's raising our children. And then you put that on top of the fact that we've completely removed God from our schools, from our society, tried to quiet anyone who wants to talk about Christ, and the fact that we are a Christian nation under God has completely been silenced. And that is the issues that we're facing. This is a spiritual war. You cannot fight this war with flesh and blood. The only way we're going to fight this war against the attack on fatherhood is by going back to the Word of God. Think about it. When you remove the father in the flesh, you're also removing the father in the spirit. And that is not okay. And we're seeing the results of that in our streets. Right now, we have people that will riot and protest if a white cop kills a black man. But we can have hundreds of black men getting shot, kids, women, men getting shot in the streets of our inner cities. And folks don't say nothing. No one's marching about that. That is sick, that's demonic, and it's wrong.
It's so important to have your voice on this, and I know so many watching right now appreciate that. I want to ask you this. Some people think if you're black, you were born into the Democrat Party. You were born as a liberal. Weigh in on that for me.
That is a mentality and a perspective that haunts me, because for almost 40 years, about 38 years of my life, I believed the same thing. I was afraid to step away from the Democratic Party. I thought and was brainwashed to believe that Republicans are for white men and Democrats are for black folks. And that is the issue that we're facing right now. And that's why I call on conservatives to step up and start to educate and start to teach versus hate, versus lashing out against the left. Let's love the left. Let's show them how to love the left. We're conservatives. That means we need to be Christ-like. We need to show people how to love each other again. Because we have a lot of folks on the other side that are hurting. Think about it. Their souls are hurting. They're killing 20 and 30 million babies, aborting late-term abortion, pushing policies that go against the fundamentals of marriage in our country. I mean, think about having to rest your head at night knowing that you represent all these satanic policies. These folks are hurting. They need to be healed. They need Christ in their life, and they need us to love them and to keep praying for them.
Jack, you mentioned about making that switch, being a Democrat and then realizing you wanted to be a conservative based on your views. I imagine that was difficult. How did you make that switch? It went back to God. And then, after watching the Obama administration,
with so many of those policies. I mean, dropping 26,000 bombs on people in your last year, over 100,000 bombs over 8 years, keeping us in all of these wars. You know, I looked at statistics and saw over 20 million black babies aborted. You know, places like New York City aborting more black babies than they are having children born. I mean, those things I can't represent. That doesn't represent me. That doesn't represent my soul. So I had to take a stand against that and had to take a stand for Christ. You know, I got slandered for it. I told President Trump he was the first Republican I ever voted for. And listen, I don't agree with everything President Trump says, and I definitely don't agree with a lot of the things he says and how he says them. But I do stand for principles, and I want a president to pass policies that are going to help the people. HBCU funding to help our black colleges continue to thrive, going into our inner cities and passing opportunity zones, putting money into communities that before him would have never got investment. Criminal justice reform, all those men that I walk into the prison and teach, I'm able to look at them in their eye and they can all tell me that they've gotten their sentence reduced because of the policies of President Trump. I mean, you can go on and on and on how President Trump has helped black America. And he may not always say things that black America wants to hear, but he's passing policies to help our children and our grandchildren. And that's a lot more than you can say for the Democratic Party, who has put all of the oppressive policies that we're talking about right now have all been Democratic Party passed. And you go into the cities that we're talking about where the carnage is happening in the streets and they're not calling in the National Guard, they're not calling in to put an end to it. Those are all Democratic cities, each and every last one of them. It's because they're not leaders. They're not leading. They're appeasing. And you cannot lead by appeasing.
Well said. You got to get away from the rhetoric and look at the results and make your decision based on that. I'll leave it there. Jack Brewer, good to see you. Thank you for your time. Your voice is needed. We'll see you again back on this program.
God bless you, sir.
You too.